Bob Whitfield is enormous. I could not believe the guy was blind in one eye, and he was out there just balling.
There's a story, Chris, where I think it was Denny Green or Bill Walsh, either one, whoever. That was the split when Whitfield was there, when he was at Stanford, and they came up to our practice, and they were like, Bob, you haven't been showing up for lifting. And he's just mulling over. And they're like, you're going in and working out after. So after practice, he walked in. They put 405 on there. He repped it like 8 times and grabbed his helmet and walked out.
Just walked out of the building.
Like, that's why I lifted for today.
Bro, that guy was he looked like He-Man out there. Steve.
Gentlemen.
White Steve.
Is it the penultimate? Well, it's not the penultimate weekend in football. We've got one more before that.
I could not be more fired up for an NFL game than this NFC Championship.
Oh, it's going to be great. It's going to be great.
Niners.
We'll talk about it in a minute. We're going to give out our locks. We're going to give out some props that we like.
All right.
Yeah, a couple props. And there's plenty to talk about, not just the games. Number one, Matt Leinart had a tweet today, or was it yesterday?
He's been tweeting out like crazy. He's a big TikTok guy too, the kids tell me.
Yeah, well, this one is debatable. It was something about the best coach in movie history, and he claims that Lou Brown. Would you agree? This is, of course, the manager from Major League.
I haven't done a deep dive into it, like racking my brain. Love sports movies, obviously. Kurt Russell as Herb Brooks, I think, was unbelievable. That's real life. I think what Matt's looking for is fiction.
Yes.
And Lou Brown is at the top of the list, for sure. What are your other contestants?
Well, the coach from Any Given Sunday.
Al Pacino?
Yeah, Al Pacino. I would also say John Candy and Cool Runnings.
Phenomenal.
Because,
great idea.
Yeah, I mean, think about it.
You're a John Candy guy. I didn't think you'd be a John Candy guy.
Well, sure. But Lou Brown, great, good coach and everything. You had the cutout of the owner in the clubhouse and all that. But John Candy took a bunch of Jamaican guys to the Olympics in a winter sport.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard to claim Lou Brown over John Candy. Another thing is Lou Brown he had a heart attack. What, take care of your health.
Knock, knock.
Who's there?
Ja.
Who?
Jamaican plays.
God damn.
Hey, Steve, how about Western University basketball coach Nick Nolte?
Pretty good.
I
think there were some demons in there.
Yeah. Well,
what about Mick from Rocky?
What about not Clint Eastwood in $1 Million Baby? He got that lady killed.
Yeah. That's off the table.
It's off the table.
That's not fair.
Okay, so not a bad
is
take.
Is Rudy true?
No, Rudy was not as Macon knows Rudy.
I do know Rudy.
Oh, okay.
What do you mean?
Sell him
was
a
it
house?
True? No, just had a couple pops with him in South Bend once.
Oh, really?
Guy loves himself the movie Rudy. He won't stop talking about it.
I've heard that a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, and supposedly not quite like the character portrayed in the movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not as wholesome.
Yeah.
But, okay, so decent take, Matt Leinart. I raise you John Candy.
I love that idea.
The Panthers are hiring Frank Reich as their head coach.
Ooh. Wow.
Reich threw the first touchdown pass in Panthers franchise history in 1995.
Well, that's as good a reason as any. Coach?
I don't know what to say.
Interesting.
I like it.
You do?
I do.
You don't think he was the problem in
No, not at all.
Depends on,
Not at all.
Let us hear about the coordinators.
Yeah, I want to hear
Ain't
about the coordinators.
no problem with the head man.
What's the internet's reaction?
Fizzled, huh?
Yeah, Dorsey's name kind of fizzled. What's the internet's reaction to Frank Reich?
I think surprise.
Yeah.
Are we going Darnold? Do we think Darnold's going to get a shot?
Wow.
Darnold.
Okay.
Like the pieces on defense.
Okay.
Maybe Frank asked Steve Wilkes to hang around. Will Steve Wilkes agree to that? Or
Maybe.
Maybe Steve Wilkes will say peace out.
Yeah, maybe he'll say peace out. Okay, so we've got some NFL news this week. Today, Nathaniel Hackett is officially the offensive coordinator of the New York Jets. Now, as producer Scott, corporate Greg said, you love that.
Yeah.
By the way, Succession coming up.
March 26th.
Can't wait.
I watched the trailer right before tax day. About
Steve,
2
you
weeks
watched
before
Succession?
Tax day.
I did. There's a lot. It's really complicated for me, Chris. I don't do well with math and all that kind of stuff and who owns what, but it's super, super interesting.
It's pretty easy to see.
Not a
The
whole lot
one
of
guy
math.
owns everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know?
But then, like, how do they keep getting angles to it? Like, they just go to Italy and then they got another angle, and then I don't know. It's there's a lot going on. Big family, kind of confused. That's what scared me off of Game of Thrones. Too many characters. I'm not good at that stuff. I need simple.
So here's something simple. It's corporate Greg's plan to land Aaron Rodgers on his beloved Jets. He said, as we watched the Detroit Lions game, that the best possible outcome was them losing this game because, God forbid, they got into the playoffs and won a game, that sort of thing. Aaron Rodgers might not leave. But Aaron Rodgers is a candidate for the Jets' quarterback vacancy. By the way, Sauce Gardner was playing Madden on a live stream, and people caught him playing with Mike White. Yeah, so that was pretty funny.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, so anyways, this is all kind of coming together for the Jets. You hire Nathaniel Hackett. Is there a possibility you think that Aaron Rodgers heads up to New York? Is this like a good sign? I mean, he went to Denver and Aaron left him at the altar, so what do you make of it?
From what I gather, Aaron Rodgers is not a fan of Brett Favre, and I don't think he would follow in his footsteps to the Jets with that reason. I also keep hearing this idea that there are plenty of good years in Aaron Rodgers' playmaking skills on the field. I'm not sure of that.
You don't think so?
I'm not sure. I'm not saying no, but that's like you think about the pieces of the Jets, and it's almost like a mini Niners, the way they've done things with building around. And obviously they've struck out twice at the quarterback position as fast as you can in drafting quarterbacks in that cycle. But is that the way you want to go? Is there, I'm just thinking about the price tag with what comes with that.
Right.
If that's what you think is all you need, then sure, go for it. But there is, the other idea. Are they going to have to give anything up for him? Like I said, I'm not doing that. I love the foundation they've built. I think it's taken some time. They've taken some heat. They've obviously overcome some things. I said all year, I thought they were a year ahead of schedule. I think Joe Douglas might admit they thought they were 1 year ahead of schedule if they got in the playoffs, but they didn't. So now they're in the middle of that draft. So
that's the problem, though.
Yeah,
they're in the middle of the draft.
Yeah.
Who do you draft? You got to trade for somebody. Like, are you going to trade for Derek Carr? Is Derek Carr going to win you a Super Bowl? I think at this point, if you're Joe Douglas and you're in a New York market and the time's ticking, and that's my guy, and I think he's the answer. But, like, their ones have been, like, I don't know, I'll name a couple. Mekhi Becton, Zach Wilson. And Mekhi, who I'm a big fan of, has been hurt. Zach Wilson has been Zach Wilson. Like, if you put it in those terms, like the chances of you hitting on 2 first-rounders, it might be better to mortgage a little bit of the future to try to cash in on this thing and extend your life as a GM and a head coach. And I don't know. I kind of like making the move.
Okay. I think in the where we are with the cap and how valuable first rounder is, I think 2 first rounders for him is too much.
Yeah.
I really do.
Yeah. Okay.
Hey, I know Nathaniel gets a lot of heat. He did take the Jags to the AFC title
Blake
game
Bortles
as an OC, and the Packers to the NFC title game as an OC. So,
was he calling plays at other place?
Who knows? Don't care.
I think he was probably calling plays in Jacksonville.
He wasn't in Green Bay.
Yeah, no, probably not.
Same title, Steve. Same
it's
title.
all about
Understood, but that's like the next leap, right? Is offensive coordinator and then offensive coordinator who calls their own plays, then, that whole elevation, that tier process that makes NFL coaching hires so difficult when you talk to people that are in it about who they can hire and what you have to do for a guy to come to your team that's making a lateral move. There's a lot of money deals in there that are complicated. But yeah, I mean, listen, I think he got exposed in Denver. A brutal situation. Never been a head coach before. You come in and deal with the ego that is your quarterback that you gave away so much for and played so much guaranteed money for. It's a tough situation, and it could not have gone worse. So does the guy know football? Absolutely. He wouldn't be here if he didn't. But it just feels like, the lowest of low-hanging fruit with Hackett going to the Jets, now Aaron Rodgers.
How much of it is like him having to have a complex scheme and be a dynamic play caller? Because, like when you hear about Aaron Rodgers and his preference, it's keep it simple. Mm-hmm. And like maybe the whole thing is more of a personality management, keep him happy, keep his chakras open, and then keep it simple for Aaron and do the things he likes to do, the concepts that he could take from Matt LaFleur that Aaron likes. So I actually see it as possibly a positive. But
hey, why don't we take a mid-round flyer on a guy like Jake Haener? You don't always have to take a quarterback in the first round.
Correct. And what is wrong with Mike White for 1 year when the quarterback class next year is so much better?
That's right.
I mean, yeah, but in a year, are you going to be is the heat lamp going to be a little hot? You're going to be like a French fry under that thing?
I think you just got to make the playoffs.
You got to make the playoffs, but their offense didn't produce at a higher clip with Mike White. Ultimately, when you looked at it,
Little Brees.
No,
all out.
Yeah,
Becton out.
You're right. You're right. You make some good points. That's why Steve's our guy.
Well, remember I said Brees, so Steve and I kind of
you got it. Well, you're the co-host.
Yeah.
Just don't lose to the Patriots twice, and you'll be all right. I think.
Hey,
that's step number one.
Coach of the year, man. Unfortunately, my Sirianni ticket's not going to cash. Which is a travesty. AP Coach of the Year finalists. It's Brian Dable, it's Doug Peterson, and it's Kyle Shanahan. Okay, and
Dan Campbell.
No Dan Campbell, which I think is fucked up too. The Shanahan thing is one thing. It's like obviously he's a great coach. Obviously he maximizes their potential offensively, but he also had a hand in picking Trey Lance. Like he's kind of lowered his expectations himself on the ceiling of that team, and they kind of lucked into Jimmy G. So like there's a coaching part of this thing, but coach, how much of it should we weigh? Like, hey, well, you picked Trey Lance. You also have Doug Peterson here, who Doug. I'm not going to argue with that one. I mean, if you think about how wounded that team was, probably mentally. Forget about the talent level and all that sort of stuff. He got them to a place that I don't think anybody expected.
Pete Carroll.
Pete Carroll did a great job. Now he did cede some of that draft evaluation responsibility that yielded some of the young players that they were able to win with this year. The other guy's Brian Dable. Okay, so I'm looking at this thing, and I really do think it's this simple. And maybe I'm not seeing the nuance in it, but Vegas has numbers on these teams before the season. Yep. They have win totals, right? And they're pretty fucking good at this thing.
They've been doing it a while. Okay. The Eagles lead the league in wins over expectation. I mean, they were 5.5 wins over their expected win total. Now they ended up 14-3. I do think that the excellence that they came out of the gate with is being held against Nick Sirianni. No if you remember the talk about the Eagles in the offseason, they were a totally different team last year. They got blanked by Tampa, and Tampa was not that good of a team last year in the playoffs. I thought that they just got off to too hot of a start possibly, and people devalued the job that Nick Sirianni's done. You also look at some of these other teams. The Chiefs were 3 wins over expectation. The Jags 2.5. The Lions 3. The Giants were only a 1.5 over expectation. And I think that's interesting because, with all the noise that was made about the Giants, they ended up with 9 wins and they get blanked in their second playoff game. I do think Dable should be in the conversation, but I do think Nick Sirianni got jobbed a little bit. Yeah, when you bring in the idea of what the teams were, like you're talking about the offseason, the Giants made minimal moves. So I thought Dable did a great job, but it's a tough deal, Chris, because when we're in this and, I'm coming on with you every week and we're breaking everything down, there's a lot more immediacy to it. And people say narratives are fake things. I can't stand them, but they are real. They're a real thing. Look at the Heisman Trophy.
Yep.
I mean, the Heisman Trophy, it's just whoever's hot at the end of the year.
Right.
It doesn't matter what you do. Tua goes the whole season and then, gets hurt, and Kyler Murray plays great the last 3 games, gets his team in the playoff, and he wins the Heisman Trophy. There's some – now, I think the Heisman's the worst voted on award in all of sports, but with the Coach of the Year, it's this relevancy thing. That's what worried me. I didn't know what to expect from the Eagles last week because we haven't seen them healthy in over a month.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know how they were going to come out with that health-wise and off a bye. The only team, coming off a bye. So I've not – I said after week 2 the NFC Championship was going to go through the link, and it was because of what that coaching staff has done. We could dive in. Like, I watched last year's Niners-Eagles game. The Eagles are a totally different team when you watch that game. And then I think about it. Last year, Niners go in there, win week 2, 17-11. That's Nick Sirianni's second game calling plays with this group. And then it's Gannon's second game calling defense with this group. And I think what the Eagles have done, like, since that, I mean, they changed that offense on the run last year.
Yep.
And then you factor in the pieces that they got and how he did a great job of bringing in people. And that head coach is in charge of molding everything together to get his team ready to play. And I don't think anybody did that better than the Eagles. So I feel sorry for you. I think you should have a winning ticket. And I bet Kevin O'Connell before the year, just off the whim, that I thought there was offensive talent, and that got exposed.
But there's still 3 wins over expectation. They had a really nice season, and their defense was the problem. I know he's an offensive coach. But, another thing is the Eagles – there's a motivational part of being a head coach, and there's also a part of being a head coach where you have to humble your team and keep them under the radar, and they got to have the right attitude. And I think the Eagles, and that was emblematic of how they played Sunday, is like they have a mindset, and it starts with him, where they're hungry and they're as good as anybody in the league, but they don't get too cocky. And they go out and prove it on the field, but they have this brash attitude about them, and I think it starts with him, a lot like the last coach. So, I won't be casting that. Zach Taylor doesn't get any respect.
None. That coaching staff, I feel, is there should be a Broyles Award winner like we have for assistant in college. We should have that in the NFL.
There is an Assistant Coach of the Year award.
Oh, there is?
Ben Johnson's up for it. D'Amico Ryans. Shane Spikeman as well.
That's an interesting one.
Yeah. Did you hear Gronk on the pregame show with my dad? He was like talking about the Eagles and Shane Spikeman.
I did not.
Yeah, my dad was trying to keep a straight face, but
yes. I just laughed because it was like 2 minutes to go in the show. They had 8 or 7 guys up there. I'm like, there's no way they could get everybody's opinion in that.
Yeah.
But they have professionals up there.
They are professionals.
Your dad does a great job at deferring.
He is. He'd
be a good point guard.
They actually put him on SNL. They did a whole SNL skit about the crew, and evidently he came out of it pretty unscathed.
As he should.
I'm pretty appreciative of that. Okay. Jim Irsay, sources say, is still considering. In fact, it's not just a consideration. Jeff Saturday is the leading candidate for him for the job of head coach of the Indianapolis Colts next year. Like, what the fuck are we doing here, Jim?
Is Jim buying another season to get the quarterback from that class?
Maybe he is, and as I said, when they hired Jeff,
could he only have that conversation with Jeff?
I suppose, and he could have also only had the conversation with Jeff when he hired him as an interim that he'd be the head coach next year, and which would, of course, grossly undercut the Rooney Rule and everything we're trying to do in our game when it comes to hiring practices. But I think not just on that level, but also on a level of like competitive play. This just doesn't sound good to me. And I think a lot of people would be upset if Jim got that job, or not if Jim got that job, if Jim hired Jim and Jeff. If Jim. So I'm a big fan of Jeff Saturday's. I get why he took the interim job, but if he takes the head coach position, I would look at it a little bit differently. I would look at it like, it's a bad look.
Yeah, I also go back to with the Snyder stuff and Irsay being pretty irritated and finally just stopping and telling all that he felt. Like these owners, I feel like, are starting to feel themselves. They've always been at that forefront, but now the outspoken and how there's a microphone everywhere, I think this is one of those ultimate decisions where he's just saying, I'm going to do what I want because I'm Jim Irsay.
Yeah, well, how'd that work out with Josh McDaniels? That news broke this week, the report that he was in the bathroom too long, and that's why Josh and his wife were like, nah, this isn't the job for you.
Do you think Saturday said, I'll come to your house, Jim, for the second interview?
Stay in the bathroom as long as you want, Jim.
He probably has 7 of them, too.
Yeah, not as many as Russell Wilson, but so I was looking at the MVP as well. Josh Allen, you've got Burrow, you've got Hurts, you've got Mahomes. There was
Justin Jefferson.
No quarrel there. But BG got snubbed when it comes to comeback player of the year. Brandon Graham.
How good is that video before the coin toss against
that
the
is
Giants?
him.
Him.
That's him all the time.
It's never off. It's on all the time.
It's never off. We spend half our time like ushering him away from these conversations. Like you see Fletcher Cox in that video.
Can you is he one of these? I mean, we've all played with him. Is he one of these guys where there's the switch and when it's on, you know it's on.
Yeah.
But then when he takes that step, you know there's no stopping him.
Kind of, yeah, and like
you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, and he's got a smile on his face the whole time, so he doesn't mean any of it, but it's so off-putting in like a really like what the fuck's wrong with this guy way, to the opponent. They're like he's a nice guy, he's smiling, but he is telling me exactly what he's going to do, and that's just pure entertainment on the field.
Did he get it from you? Did you tell Case Keenum you were coming for his throwing arm in the NFC Championship game?
Maybe he got it from me. Yeah, maybe he got it from me.
I want to check that tape. You were mic'd up for that one, I think.
I don't know. Yeah, maybe I don't think I was mic'd up, but yeah, BG got snubbed because his injury at his age and coming back and doing what he did, not just 11 sacks, but sacks per play, like extremely efficient and sliding into that role that kind of I had, which was like, you're the veteran, we're going to spell you, but we need big rushes out of you. And he delivered at an amazing click. And I just like Geno had a whole decade to come back. Fucking Brandon Graham had like 6 months.
Yeah.
So I look at this thing and I say,
that narrative around Geno started week 1 and it stayed pretty strong.
Yeah, it did.
And it didn't matter what he did. Like people are throwing his stats up compared to guys. It's kind of a joke when you look at it. But also going back to Graham, he does his Achilles on one of the most critical plays in that game last year. It's a 3rd down, and Garoppolo finally gets something going and completes it past the Kittle. And that's the play. Graham is out for the year. So
talk about that game because you went back and watched that game.
Yeah,
that was the game BG got hurt.
There's a lot going on. I thought it was the most telling thing was, I wanted to see what the Eagles were. I don't remember the game. And just going back, like I said, Chris, Nick calling plays for only the 2nd time with this group, I thought it was very eye-opening because it's, both teams feeling each other out. The Niners went 3 straight 3-and-outs to start the game. Jalen is backed up, hits a huge fade to Quez Watkins, gets them down to the 9-yard line. They get a penalty, so now it's first and goal from like the 13. So I think they run on 2nd or 3rd down. They get a PI in the end zone, so now or on the 1-yard line. So it's at the 2 or the 1, and so literally the Eagles had like 7 plays to run 1st and goal in a 3-0 game, and on 4th down they ran Philly special.
Yeah,
and I'm just like, wow, like I just you could sense the tightness of it, and then it's just a rock'em sock'em. I thought both offensive lines were phenomenal. Bosa had 2 sacks. The Eagles had 0 sacks against Garoppolo, and it makes I think this offense for the Niners is more versatile with Purdy. I really do. Just watching it and remembering what Jimmy was. I mean, the Niners, their 2 touchdown drives were a 12-play, 97-yard drive to take the lead, and then a 16-play, 85-yard drive that ends up being the difference in the game. So I just when I looked at it, the Eagles shut the run down in the first half. I think it was 12 for 24, and that's what I look at in this game. I know the Eagles, when you break these two teams down, I have the Eagles allowed over 100 yards rushing 13 times this year. Now, a lot of those games were out of hand, so you could take quarterback runs into that factor. And then the Niners only allowed over 100 yards rushing 5 times. I think the Eagles have a better chance to run for over 100 yards in this game because of
the injuries too,
and the versatility of the offense, though, as a whole.
Yeah,
because Tim Hasselbeck comes in every week with us, and we're talking just about that matchup. And I thought he made a great point about the idea of, as a defense, there's quarterbacks in the league where you have to, they're a run threat, right?
Yeah.
But Jalen, you have to account for him in the run game.
Yes, because it's part of their operation.
So, as much zone as the Niners like to play, I don't think they could play that much.
Yeah.
And what does that create? It creates one-on-ones.
Well, it's also something they prefer to do. They prefer to play zone. I mean, and so taking you out of your game.
But I think this is something that the Eagles could dictate a little bit.
Yep.
Knowing how scary Jalen is. And the biggest factor to me out of that game last year was I thought, everybody, why'd they trade Zach Ertz? They traded Zach Ertz to get more physical in the run game.
Yeah.
Instead of Goddard being the H-back and the motion guy, he becomes the wide down in his three-point stance. And now you really get some size up there with those two great tackles they have. So I'm leaning Philadelphia. I think it's an under game. I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Do you the 2.5? I would tend, if I know Chris Long, he's gonna buy half or maybe a point.
Yeah.
3.5.
So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take the over, and we're gonna give out a pick for each game, total and a side. And because of the luck I had last week fading the Eagles, I'll take the Niners plus 2.5. I think the Eagles win by 2 points. And I'll buy
all the Philly people happy.
I'll buy it a 3. I do think they win this game, but
I do.
I would not bet the Eagles any higher than 3. And you could go either way on it. But sticking with my guns, I'll fade the Eagles, which is going to mean they win, and probably cover. But it's fine. This locks thing is not that important. It's more like guesses. And I'll take the over. The question I have for you is: did Nick Bosa beat Mailata for those 2 sacks, or?
Yeah, I believe one of them was against the tight end. I think it was Goddard lined up, and then the other looked like a stunt, but he started lined up on Mailata.
Well, that's the question for me. That's the big matchup. It's Mailata and Bosa. Because I think Bosa, he'll line up over Lane some, but if I have my pick and I can rush from both sides as Bosa can, I'll be over on Mailata a lot, which is a lot of strength and a lot of a lot of brute strength. And listen, that game last year, I just remember being like, it was a bloodbath. It reminded me of like when we used to play the Niners and like, Brandon Jacobs was the running back and Frank Gore, and it was just like we played him in a couple games that went 12-9, and it just was like that. And I think this game's going to be so physical, but it's also going to be higher scoring. Okay. Do you want to give out some props for this game here and make what are your locks?
I'm with Steve on the under.
Yeah.
Divisional games were lower scoring. Last year, the 2 championship games, 37 points, 41 points. What is the number? 46 and a half?
It's ticking up.
That feels like a lot. It feels like we're thinking about Philly scoring 38 last week, and they're going to face a little more resistance.
I'm honestly thinking about the fact that the Niners have what it takes to slow down the pass rush. I mean, and I think early in this game, it'll be interesting because the Niners aren't built to play from behind.
No.
The Eagles are going to take chances. They're going to put the gas pedal to the floorboard. They're going to take shots. They're going to try to go up early at home. And for the Niners, I think it's all about limiting the pass rush and the effectiveness of that unit by getting to your quick game, by running the football. And I think that's going to be the battle early on for these two teams.
The biggest factor in this game, Chris, we talked about him at the beginning, Nick Sirianni. We have never seen him in a game of this magnitude be the head coach of a team and see how he is. Shanahan gets plenty of blame for being conservative in these spots with games at these stakes. I go back to the 28-3 game you played in. I don't agree with it. I thought there were some mishaps on his players.
Holding.
Running backs picking up pressures a la one that he gets blamed for. And the idea that he gets conservative, I don't agree with that. I still think, the first half, end of the first half of the Super Bowl against the Chiefs where they get to throw to Kittle and there's a penalty on that, and then he basically runs the clock out. I don't agree with that narrative around him. What I'm dying to see is what Sirianni does in this instance. With a game of this magnitude, knowing as hyped as that place is going to be, and if, it's a 3-0 game, it's a 7-0 game, does that play calling? Is there a little tightness on the Eagles side of the play calling? That's what I'm fascinated with in this game. So I'm going to go Eagles in the under in this matchup, and the idea is Jalen being the ultimate difference maker, but also I think the Eagles' depth up front on the defensive side is going to wear on the Niners. I really do, and they get creative up there, and that's lining up for 60 minutes with that crowd. I like the idea of that.
They are deeper on the D-line, and the difference in this game, the reason why I would say the Eagles are going to win this game is because of the quarterback. I mean, I just don't think people make a big enough deal about it. I mean, Brock Purdy has gotten a lot of praise.
Yep, he should.
As he should.
Correct.
But let's put that praise in context to the situation, and I think also I've said this week after week. It's just you're waiting for that game that he throws 2 picks, and if the Niners turn the ball over, this could be the Eagles going away. But the props I like. Speaking of that, I like the Brock Purdy throwing a pick at -179. I like 2 picks at +280.
There you go.
If you want to get a little frisky, I also like Jalen Hurts longest reception over 45 yards. You can go over 40 +110. Jalen Hurts longest reception.
I think he's throwing it.
Yeah, I think he's throwing
longest
the
completion.
Completion. Did I say reception? Longest completion over 40 yards or over 45 at +170. San Francisco's given up big chunks in the pass game. And the question is, you brought up a really good point earlier, and it might hinge on whether I give this prop out or not, but I kind of like A.J. Brown under 70 yards because
I like over.
Well, his injury and the fact that they do play a lot of zone, his yards per route are way lower against zone than they are against man. And I just wonder how much they're actually going to stick to those zone concepts because of what you talked about in the quarterback running game. I also like Devontae Smith. All his props over. I think because you might pay more attention to A.J. Brown because of what we talked about, because of how important he is at the sticks, and they are going to be trying to convert a lot on Sunday. I like Devontae Smith over.
How much better do you rank these secondaries, both of them, Chris, because of the talent they have up front in the D-line?
Well, I think with Philly, I think the corners make them look even better than they are up front, and I think they're really, really, really good, right? So I'm not taking anything away from them, but those 2 corners are amazing. And then for much of the year, and I think a big key is, are you going to get Avonte Maddox back, one of the best slot guys in the league? C.J. Gardner-Johnson, I think, has got to handle those responsibilities with Blankenship as the safety. And I think in San Francisco, I think it's more about the D-line in a weird way. Their corners haven't been as good as the Eagles' corners. They have a bunch of playmakers. Fred Warner locks down the middle of the field, so you take away quick options. So you get that boost from the Niners' second level. But those 2 corners in Philly, I think, are just such a difference maker.
I got 3 props for you.
Okay.
Here we go.
Jalen Hurts under 31.5 passing attempts.
Yep.
Okay. Can I interest you in +800? Ball game's tied at halftime. +800. Little tight.
Ooh.
Oh, yeah, I think
Little
so.
tight. 10-10.
There you go.
10-10.
I was thinking 14-14.
Okay, 14-14. I know you need the points. And here's a +1200 for you.
Yeah.
It's about time Juszczyk gets lost
scores a
in the
touchdown.
sauce, scores a touchdown.
Yeah.
Nobody's within a quarter mile of him. +1200. He's
I
had
like that
2
too.
TDs this year. He's due.
That stood
What
out
is he
to
for
me as
first
well.
touchdown?
Let me look at my app that I've deleted.
What's Hurts rushing yards?
Hurts rushing yards.
Should be about 40.
48 and a half.
48 and a half.
Usage first TD
Usage.
is Kyle first TD is a
Kyle.
30-1.
Yeah.
Plus 3,000.
Hurts ran for 82 on 10 carries last year.
Yeah.
Ah.
Just
I like the
little
Hurts.
info.
I like the Hurts rushing total as well. I think we're on this one, guys.
I love the Devontae Smith call. What's Debo rushing yards?
I would take the over on that too. I think that's interesting because with the thing we haven't mentioned explicitly is Mitchell and McCaffrey with injuries, and Debo could be out of the backfield more.
Yes.
Our
Damn, you
official
guys are
site.
going to put the fucking San Francisco on the locks. You know what? I'm going to change it to Eagles because
I haven't given mine.
no, but here's the thing. They put out this graphic and people aren't smart.
Yeah.
So people are like, you know, like last week I picked the Giants to cover and everybody with, these Eagles fans were like, oh, they picked the Giants to win. So you know what I'm going to do? Fuck it. This isn't that important anyways. I'm going to take the Eagles at 2.5 and I'm going to take the over.
Yeah, I noticed we didn't put out that graphic every week all year when I won.
Well, we just
that
started. We just started.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Is that on Matt or Reed? Who do I go after?
Not me.
You go after me.
Reed?
So I like much the same way that you watch the.
I see McCaffrey 61.5. I'm going under there.
Okay.
Debo rushing over under 20.5.
Over.
I'll go over.
Yeah. Just like you dug into this San Francisco game last and really seemed to have enjoyed it. I enjoyed watching the Kansas City Cincy game earlier this season. You know, obviously you can go back and watch last year's AFC playoff game. I've talked about this game already on the pod. I don't think you were here for it, Steve, but the Bengals really ran the ball up their ass. And the Bengals should have been up 21-3 if Dunlap doesn't sniff out that end around on 4th and short. Like, this is not a fluke. This is a bad matchup for Kansas City, and especially in the context of Patrick Mahomes' injury, although he did look pretty fucking good walking off the podium. It kind of scared me a little bit.
Can I point out one thing on that, though?
Yeah.
He took his first step with his left.
Right.
Oh.
Yep.
Think about it.
Well, you know.
Are we all righties here? When you go downstairs, what's your first step?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Right.
Well, I'll tell you this much. When I
You have like 900 stairs in that building, so figure it out next time you leave the stairs.
yeah, that's true. We do have a lot of stairs, but if it's
Is
locked,
that elevator coming in
if it's
23?
locked, I can climb up. I can scale the side of the building.
You could. I've seen that happen
Yeah,
before. I
yeah.
have a witness.
Yeah,
Is the elevator coming in 23?
Maybe. Got to
Okay.
call Otis. So, anyways, you know, like I'm looking at that game and I'm saying to myself, like Patrick Mahomes. And by the way, him walking good. When I had my
Way better than I thought it
when
was
I
gonna
had
look.
my high ankle, I couldn't walk the whole week. So maybe it's not as bad as we think. There's a whole range of how high the ankle injury can be.
I have a theory on this, Chris, and it started, I don't know, very recently. Every pro athlete, when it comes to an ankle, it's a high ankle now.
You think?
I've rolled my ankle a million times, never been a high ankle, but I think it's just high ankle. High ankle is going to be out more. He's going to be out. They already build this window. You know what a high ankle is.
Yes.
And maybe it was a low ankle.
Maybe it was a tweak with a contusion.
Maybe that ball on the side of your ankle was swollen a little bit, you know?
Yeah.
And now it looks more miraculous. You know what I mean?
And maybe Mahomes is thinking in the third quarter, like, we're going to beat these boys. Let me ham this thing up.
Yeah. Just let me know when you see when it's an ankle. Let me know when you hear it's a regular ankle,
Okay.
not a high ankle.
Okay. Just watch
Any
the
sport.
watch the NBA.
Any sport.
NBA. They don't do
they'll
high
go.
ankles in the NBA.
Basketball. I mean, NBA. I went my whole life never hearing an NBA player have a hamstring injury because of how much backpedaling is, and now every guy's out with a hamstring.
Yeah. Well.
Come on.
So I'll
Sorry.
say this. I watched that game, and Mahomes, as you know, just extends plays in the low red. I mean, like, that's half of it. His and even in the field, like, they're gonna be quick game, right? They're gonna be a little bit different. But 2.9 seconds snap to release it's a lot of time for rushers. That baked into that is Mahomes is always buying time, and in the red zone that goes up even more. So I just look at it and, like, The play that he jumps over the goal line looking like Michael Jordan is off the board. You know, some of these other plays that he extends, they're off the board. Cincinnati's physicality was too much for him. They had a plan for Chris Jones. They kept him kind of quiet. I think he looked tired by the end of that game. And P. Ryan came up huge. They didn't even have Joe Mixon. The guys outside, like, are those matchups going to be any better for Kansas City? I am giving out Kansas City, and when I tell you that I am betting Kansas City big, I am betting them big. It's not just a lock for me. This is business.
Wow.
Yeah.
So when I think about this with the Chiefs off, everybody, right, Mahomes' injury, what effects it's going to have on the offense. I look what they did when he went out, when Henny comes in, and they run the ball right at Jacksonville.
Yes.
And the most underappreciated group in the NFL, I feel like, for the last 2 years is the Bengals defense.
Yeah.
And because I mean, look at Reeder. I just think the run or the pass, running sideline to sideline, that dude, man, you talk about playmaking from that position, it doesn't get much better than him. So can the Chiefs get movement with just simple runs?
Mm-hmm.
You know, like they did against Jacksonville? Because all that out-of-pocket stuff and all – you know, say a naked where he's starting to hit those deep crossers, I don't think that stuff's going to be available in the offensive game plan. Now, we've seen plenty of not mobile. I mean, Peyton Manning's done plenty of damage in playoffs throwing the ball from in the pocket. Is Mahomes going to have the patience to do that?
Yeah.
And also, is he going to have the time?
Yep.
So I think the biggest part of this game is the Chiefs' offensive line and how well they play, because you talked about the last game against Bengals Chiefs. The Bengals have beaten them 3 times, 3 different ways.
Yeah.
You know, the first going back to Chase running crazy. You know, you mentioned the run game last time they played. And then the AFC Championship last year, the defense just stymied the Chiefs in the second half and got them enough possessions in the second half to ultimately get that game tied and go to overtime. So I'm kind of with you. I think it's scary that the Chiefs are on the borderline of being an underdog at home. Mahomes has never been an underdog in a playoff game. He's never even played a road playoff game.
Yeah.
That's all I've wanted to see the last 4 years is Mahomes have to go on the road in the playoffs. But I'm with you. I still think they're dangerous enough. The other idea is, will that absence of Tyreek Hill now really be a factor, knowing Mahomes is going to be in the pocket and those guys are going to have to get open in one-on-one situations consistently? Because I think a lot of those cover guys. I mean, shoot, Eli Apple. You ask him how good he thinks he is.
Yeah.
I don't think you could find a higher appraisal of a person than what he's talking now online. So he's going to be up against it. You know they're going to go at him. So I look at the other guys. I mean, I think that guy Hilton in the slot is great coverage. They do a great job against screens.
Yeah.
And that's where I think Andy will try and do some things. But I do still like Pacheco overs, as if we're going to talk props before we go picks.
I wonder if you take a Kelsey prop because of the fact of the first time they played this year, he didn't have a catch the whole first half. Like, they're going to feed him the ball. They're going to get him going. You don't want him sitting around at halftime I feel like the security blanket's going to be big for them.
Yeah, that's the chess moves here. Like, I looked at the Bengals and read everything after that game. They made it a point. They were taking away Kelsey in the first half of that game.
Yep.
And they did it.
Yeah, they did.
So what is Andy to counterpart that now? I think you're still going to see a lot more of that. I just call it the Chiefs. It's that 3-by-1 when Kelsey's the one receiver.
Yep.
Because now you dictate what the Bengals are going to have to do when you line up in that formation.
No question.
So we could see some good stuff there, especially running the ball. If you get enough guys out of the box there, knowing how good Pacheco is getting downhill that fast.
Here's 2 interesting officiating pieces of news, and they're relevant for the Chiefs in many ways. Number 1, Carl Cheffers is going to be the Super Bowl official.
Second in 3 years.
Yeah, and that's not a good thing for the Chiefs because Travis Kelce fucking hates him. Number 2, Ron Torbert. His crew is going to be the officiating crew this weekend in Kansas City, and I thought this was really interesting. His crew calls pass interference 11.5% of deep balls, and that's twice the league average. Wow. So if you're Kansas City, easy way to steal some of that top end kind of vertical passing game would be take shots.
2 things on this. these are all-star crews now for refs. It's
Yeah.
not the crew from the season. And, yeah, we got Torbert in Kansas City and Hussey in Philadelphia.
Hussey. Well, I just want to say one more thing before we give the picks out. I think it's going to be interesting to see what Lou Anarumo does, especially early in the game. You know, like, I think he uses the first quarter to feel this thing out, like where Patrick's ankle really is. I think he's got a game plan for the first quarter. I think he's got a game plan for, you know, after that point. I also think it's interesting to look back, and Mina Kimes pointed this out. They dropped 3 like 8 times in that first game, and I think sometimes with Patrick Mahomes, that's the way to go. And it really paid dividends for them in some big spots. So it'll be interesting to see. He was 1 for 4 for 15 yards when they dropped 8. So that's going to be an interesting little chess game as well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I got a question, player. What happened to your large Cincinnati bet from Monday morning? Did you pull that back? Take those?
No. That's still there.
Take
What do you
those
mean?
funds back? Okay.
No. I just put in a
He's
big.
just coming over the top of that now.
Okay.
No.
All right,
No.
gotcha.
What I mean is I've already bet it.
Okay.
I've already bet it. Like Monday morning, this is one of those things I didn't have to wait. I don't care what the line does. I think they win the game. So, and yeah, it's not a hot take, but I think a lot of people are also like, there's no way they beat them 4 times in a row.
I just also look at this matchup, guys. When you talk to people around the Bengals, they couldn't have it any other way. This is the way they would want it. Going there and proving it again that last year wasn't a fluke, and the Chiefs couldn't have it any, like come on back. That was a fluke.
Yeah.
Both these teams have had this game circled for plenty of time. So much to love in these games that I'm with you.
All right, let's do the locks. All
right.
I've got the Bengals and the under.
I'm gonna go. We have to give out scores, right? Doesn't this?
I guess
this,
we do have to give
Isn't
out
there
scores.
there's not a better podcast that gives out final scores than this one, right?
You're right about
Correct.
that.
Okay.
Correct.
You're right about that.
right.
So for the Eagles game, I'm going to go 20. God damn, I'm trying to get the over. I'm going to go 27-24 Eagles.
Ooh. I'm gonna go 23-20 Eagles.
I still haven't decided on that game. It's a hard one to pick.
Yeah.
Well, the pod's got to come out.
Yeah, dude.
Okay. All right. Okay. 26-24 Niners.
I like that total.
Shit. That's not the under.
Okay.
He came out the under.
Yeah, and then for the Chiefs game, I've got what is the total there? It's
47 now. That one's ticking up.
47.
Too, with
Give me 26-24. No.
Cat.
I
Let
need
me hit you with a
24-21.
24-20.
24-21.
26-20.
24-21 Bengals.
26-20.
I'm gonna go same score in both games, 23-20.
Okay.
Hey, I'm going 27-13 Bengals.
Wow.
Nearly the same as last week, 27-10 in Buffalo. Going to be a similar game.
Okay.
Bengals
You
minus
gotta
6.5 is plus 220.
Yeah, I like that.
I was gonna say you should go all team total Chiefs under. You could get
Yep.
You could.
Yeah, no question.
Although
hit him over the head with that.
Although then those 3 letters might be onto you.
Hey, easy. Easy.
Hey, now that we've wrapped up talking about these championship games, Steve, I'm going to start this thing here knowing that we need content going into the offseason. It's something I really enjoy doing late at night is watching old games on YouTube.
Oh.
The NFL has a lot of old games. So I'm going to do this Friday football flashback thing. I just thought of that. You know, the 3 Fs, not to be confused with the other Fs, faith, family, football.
Right.
The other 3
Friends.
Fs. Friends.
Friends.
Okay, so I don't know if you remember this. Reed, you remember this because your Broncos in 1998 won the Super Bowl, and they played the Atlanta Falcons. So I went back and watched the NFC Championship in 1998, and this was Dan Reeves and is Chris Chandler against the Vikings and Randall Cunningham and company. You had John Madden, you had Pat Summerall. There were 3:43 to go. Imagine how they would have skewered Dan Reeves. He's got timeouts. He's ready to use them. He uses one. They have trouble getting a guy out on the field after an entire fucking huddle, and he tries to call another timeout. You can't call consecutive timeouts. So
Yeah.
Dan Reeves would have got cooked on the internet. You've got fucking Gary Anderson with a single bar face mask. Pat Summerall's like he hasn't missed a kick in 2 years. He misses a fucking kick. The ball game goes to overtime. You got Chris Chandler fucks his knee up on the turf. John Madden says he stubbed his toe. That was the medical analysis of that moment. You had David Dixon out there, Corey Stringer. You remember these guys? How fucking big they were.
Oh,
it was incredible.
Corey Stringer was a monster.
David Dixon was huge, bro. Go look at Google David Dixon right now. And you had one of your former teammates, Bob Whitfield.
I'm not that old.
Well, you play with Algie Crumpler. No. So Bob Whitfield, they're getting this is such 90s football. They're getting lined up late in the fourth, and John Madden's talking about how much trouble they've had hearing, at the Metrodome, and Bob Whitfield, the left tackle, he not only can he not hear, he's blind in his right eye. I'm like, first off, there's nothing more 90s football than that. The guy's blind in his right eye. He's out there blocking John Randall. He can't see loop stunts coming from the inside. No problem. Stanford graduate. Guy's enormous. There was just some huge dudes out there on the field. It was awesome. And obviously, the Falcons won the game in overtime. It was a thrilling 30 minutes watching the end of this ball game. And my favorite part was catching Pat Summerall and John Madden more so doing a dick joke. On the broadcast. Can I play that real quick?
Was it about Eugene Robinson?
Just listen.
And see, he had to hold the ball, and he got whipsawed right at the end.
Now, big load, Jerry Ball.
Jerry Ball's a big load?
Yep.
A big load, Jerry Ball. Jerry Ball's a big load? That's John Madden making a load joke. There's no way that wasn't a load joke.
Yeah.
So I just love going back and watching these games. I don't know what your memory of that game was, Steve, but
it's funny you say that. I had to make it a point to go back and watch that game because if Minnesota won that game, that would have been the best Super Bowl ever.
Really, you think?
John Elway's last game against the best offense I've seen in the NFL. I know people talk about Brady and Moss, but this offense, because people forget, Randall, I forgot who it was, that quarterback got hurt. He was the backup that came in and took over, and you know how beautiful Randall threw the deep ball. They just found something in the middle of that season with Cunningham, and it was, Chris Carter,
Brad
Moss.
Johnson was the other quarterback.
Yeah, they broke the record for single season offense that stood since 1983, I think it was. With
Robert
the Redskins.
Smith's one of the most underrated players at running back in the league I've ever seen.
Fuck, the guy had what's his name? The backup running back was Horn or Hearn?
Yeah, Horde.
Leroy
Horde. He was on
Horn.
the old Browns teams.
He was a beast. There were a ton of names out there on that field.
Tim Dwight. Remember Tim Dwight, Iowa receiver?
Do I remember Tim Dwight? What's he doing out here?
He had Big Ten Conference tatted on his bicep.
No, he didn't.
Yes, he did. Look it up.
How do you think he feels today?
Great.
About the Big Ten and the expansion.
Got the new logo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I think he ran track, and that's where you saw the pictures. Like he was in his tank top track outfit, and you could see the Big Ten Conference.
Gary Anderson hasn't missed a kick in 2 years, and then just shanks a 39-yarder with his single bar face mask. There were two Anderson kickers in this game. Fucking Chris Chandler's hairline was terrible. Guys didn't care at all. Care at all back in the day about keeping it tight. You had Steve DeBerg. He had a bad hairline, too. He had like a sunroof over there talking to Dan Reeves.
You wrote down a list of bad hairlines?
Steve DeBerg.
Jamal Anderson, Dirty Birds.
Bro, and you just think about the Vikings. I get why they have the complex they do in that fan base, because this is another crushing loss.
God. That's what I said. All I think of the Vikings is playoff losses at home in my lifetime.
They're up 27-20 with 3 minutes to go. It's a 39-yard kick.
Yeah.
Just make the kick. So, Football Friday flashback. How did I say that? Flashback Friday? Whatever the fuck. We'll workshop it.
Macon.
Hey, Steve, Vikes were 11-point favorites in that game.
I know.
No
I know
way.
that.
Yeah.
Oh, I know that.
Hit me.
And on the other side, too, the Jets with Vinny Testaverde and Parcells had the lead in the second half in Mile High, the old Mile High.
Oh, wow.
And Elway came back and beat him in that. They had a block punt that was brutal.
In another universe, the Jets and the Falcons playing in a Super Bowl with Chris Chandler and Vinny Testaverde.
I had teammates on. That was right when I was after my sophomore year of college, junior year.
Yeah.
So I had guys that were on the Jets. Like we were
Algie
all in on
Crumpler
the Jets
was at
that
Carolina.
year.
But fucking
at Carolina.
Bob Whitfield is enormous. I could not believe the guy was blind in one eye, and he was out there just balling.
There's a story, Chris, where I think it was Denny Green or Bill Walsh, either one, whoever. That was the split when Whitfield was there, when he was at Stanford, and they came up to our practice, and they were like, Bob, you haven't been showing up for lifting. And he's just mulling over. And they're like, you're going in and working out after. So after practice, he walked in. They put 405 on there. He repped it like 8 times and grabbed his helmet and walked out.
Just walked out of the
He's
building.
like, that's my lifted for today.
Bro, that guy was he looked like He-Man out there.
Monster. And his son, Cody, played at Stanford. He just got hired by Chip Kelly to coach the secondary at UCLA. So it brings it all.
He seems like a cool guy, man. That's pretty fucking
best.
cool. I cannot even imagine not being able to see out of one of your eyes and playing tackle in the NFL.
Macon.
Block John Randall. Now block John Randall. Like when you go to the eye doctor, they're like,
well, lucky for him, it doesn't change play to play.
now block John Randall with your left eye. Is that any better?
Steve, what do you want to tell me, man?
There was a former Hokies running back that had 1 carry for 0 yards in that game. I will give you a hint. His last name began with an O.
Ken Oxendine.
There you go. I knew he would get it. I knew it.
See how fun this segment is, man?
It is
and
fun.
it's just it's good because at night I just love sitting there in bed, blinding my wife with the iPad.
From that game.
Okay.
Watch the AFC. It's Jets at Denver.
That's next for me.
There you go.
Next week.
I could rattle off games for you every week for this segment.
Please do. You should. Yeah, you should be the one that tells me which ones to watch and nominates them. Okay.
Hey, the Niners lost in last year's NFC Championship.
Yeah.
That's why they're going to win it this year.
Okay.
All right.
Well, Steve, that was a lot of fun. This Sunday will be even more fun. I'm going to be up there.
You're going to Philly?
Yeah, I'm going.
Are you the honorary captain?
Fuck no, dude. They roll me out for like Jacksonville in the rain. You know, like they save the big guns for.
Hey, they didn't know Jacksonville was going to be a playoff team then.
No, they didn't. Well, they must have known. They called me. So, anyways, I cannot wait. It's
Send your Chris Long.
Yeah. That fucking guy, dude. I'll probably end up sitting right next to that same guy I sat next to at the World Series. I could not believe my ears.
Hey,
how much are train tickets more expensive on NFC Championship weekend?
I think they might be. I think I need to look into that.
If you're in Philly and you see C. Long,
yeah,
you know what to do.
Send your Chris Long.
Just belt it out. All day long.
All right, Steve. Happy hunting.
Love you, Steve.
Absolutely, boys.
We love you.
Love you guys too.
Okay.
Bye.
Listen to the full podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and other podcast streaming platforms. Wherever you want to get the podcast, you can get the podcast. Pretty simple. New episodes every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more content. Podcasts get pretty wild. This is real tame.